1989, Bobby McFerrin won 3 Grammys for his big hit, Don't Worry, Be Happy. McFerrin claims inspiration for the song came while being stranded on the side of the road after his car broke down. Somebody driving by called out to him, "Don't worry, be happy." I have been broken down on the side of the road several times, and I don't recall being happy. And if someone had called out to me that, I definitely would not have felt happiness. Saying don't worry seems a bit inadequate. Telling someone not to worry is hardly a solution to what is causing the worry. I feel like every video and written post that I've put on Facebook lately is me in some way quoting or at least echoing Bobby McFerrin's "Don't worry, be happy." It felt good to try and encourage people at the beginning of this pandemic, but it feels pretty inadequate right now. How do you not worry when each day the news gets worse? Obviously, worry is not a solution. It's not even the path to a solution. When we worry, we tend to fixate on the source of the worry to the exclusion of everything else. We turn over and over again the issue that is worrying us in our minds. We also tend to awfulize, to make something even worse in our minds. Our worrying doesn't provide solutions. It actually makes our perspective on the issue worse. Now, I would also argue that be happy is not a solution either. It's just a denial of that which is worrying us. It would be nice if we could just shut down worry and turn on happy at will, but it doesn't work that way. We need to each recognize our tendencies when we worry and counter them. If you find yourself spending all day reading news about COVID-19, stop it. Look for other things to read about. There are lots of other things to spend your time on. A movie, maybe not Contagion, a new hobby, a book, anything but spending hours thinking about the pandemic. The Apostle Paul wrote the following words in his letter to the church in Philippi. Rejoice. Rejoice. Be considerate. Don't worry, pray. Thank God and receive peace that guards hearts and minds. Live in Christ. Think about what is true, honorable, right, lovely, pure, admirable, excellent, and worthy of praise. Practice everything learned. God will give peace. These are the words of a man who had been beaten, stoned, imprisoned, whipped, and persecuted because of his faith. And yet here he is in prison, bound in chains, encouraging people not just by saying rejoice, but by offering 3 key solutions. The first is, instead of worrying about it all, turn to God and pray. There are several important things to remember when you do this. First and foremost, God is there, and God listens to your prayers. You're not just talking to the air. It is also important that part of the process of praying is to leave it with God. There's little point asking God for help and then walking away carrying the load. Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and overburdened, and I will give you rest. Put on my yoke and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Now, it would have been nice if he had said something more like, "Come to me and I will send you on a beach vacation." But God is more realistic than that. After all, running away from something is not a solution. But what is important here is that oxen were yoked in pairs. What Jesus is offering here is to be paired up with you and Him as you continue on your journey in life. Prayer is also an important way to process what you are thinking and feeling. Sometimes the great revelation comes as you frame your prayers. The second solution is that instead of worrying about it all, think about good things. We tend to spin. What I mean by that is that we have a tendency to fixate on a problem and play it over and over in our minds. We spin it until we are dizzy with worry. Paul basically is saying, stop it. There are other things you can think about. Good things, noble things, true things, and encouraging things. If you're going to spin, at least spin good news and not bad. The third solution that Paul offers is, instead of worrying about it all, practice what you've learned. Paul spent a lot of time teaching people, giving them direction and living out that in his own life. I play guitar, and I know that when I don't practice, my skills, such as I have, slip. A good friend of mine, when he was studying music in college, had a professor who said, "You miss one practice and you will know it. You miss two practices and I will know it. You miss three practices and everyone will know it." It is important to put into practice the lessons that we have learned. And Paul ends all this with a promise. God will give peace. Finally, I suggest that instead of worrying, look for the solutions that you can control. For example, I stay indoors as much as possible. When I go out, I wear a mask. In fact, I sewed a mask. I have Lysol wipes in my car. And at work, I have Purell, and I wash my hands for 20 seconds. I am a senior citizen, and even though I prefer to sleep in, I get up in the morning to take advantage of the early senior grocery shopping time. So work on solutions, not on worrying about the problem to death. It is a terrible time, a difficult time, and yes, it will pass, but while we're in the middle of it, we can choose to either worry ourselves into depression, anxiety, and illness, or we can choose to live within the situation and do the best we can with it. You can't make the virus go away, but you can control how you are going to live. I know that life is more complicated and difficult right now, and saying don't worry, be happy is not a solution, but it can be an aspiration. Take care.